Hi, my name is Kathy Hopper, and I'm going to be talking to you about how to be successful in math. So one thing that I hear from a lot of people about math is, why do I have to take this math class? When am I ever going to use this? So I'm going to share with you a true story. I have 3 kids of my own. None of them particularly like math. Oh, stab to the old heart, right? So my middle daughter is an interior designer in Chicago. She just graduated, got her first big job, all excited to go to the big city. First week of the job, what does she say to me? Mom, it's all math. I have to prorate the taxes. I have to prorate the shipping costs back to all of the different types of places. So in the end, could she escape the math? No, not at all. So math is going to come up and be a part of your life in ways you don't expect. So how are you going to deal with it? How are you going to be successful? The first thing that you can do is relax and have a positive attitude. If you have to take a math class, you have to take it. Do what you need to do. Work hard and be successful the first time through. That's the goal. Believe you can succeed. One thing that comes across in different studies that are done is just the importance of effort in math. Even sometimes more than natural math ability is just how much you're willing to work hard at it. So the second thing is, the same as with any other class, make sure that you have all the appropriate materials that you need for class. So have your book, have a calculator, and one thing while we're talking about calculators, make sure that you get a calculator that's a good fit for you. If you haven't had math for a while or uncomfortable with it and haven't used a calculator very much, don't get a TI Inspire. It's going to be a project all on its own. Okay, then get a simple calculator. If you're not sure which calculator to get, ask. Either in the developmental math lab, ask your instructor and they will be more than happy to help you. Also make sure that you know how to use it once you get it, so ask for help on that. Attend class. That's the next thing that's going to be so important. You are much more likely to understand the concepts if you have someone explaining them to you. Remember that the more different ways you're taking in the material, visually, audially, you're going to read it in the book, the more likely you are to remember it. Also remember that our instructors are people too. So they are going to take notice if you're sitting in class with your head down and your eyes closed sleeping, or whether you're actively taking notes, trying to answer questions, asking questions. This is also going to help you keep your focus in math. If you have to miss a class, and I'm not saying to go have lunch with your friend, I'm talking you're sick, you have a doctor's appointment that you can't reschedule, make sure that you read the notes, or read the section, get notes from a friend, try to do some of the homework. And then, if you're still not understanding, by all means, go and get help. Go to one of the tutoring centers, go and talk to your instructor. But make sure that you own it and that you are trying to do as much as you can. Take good notes. So when you know that the instructor is writing something on the board, whatever they're writing down for a reason. They are letting you know just how important it is, and they're giving you the direction. You want to be writing that down too. Writing it down is also going to give you problems for reference later on. So you may be following along and think it makes perfect sense when the instructor does the problem on the board. But then you get out of class and go to do your homework and think you have no clue what's going on. It really helps if you have something to refer back to. Reviewing the problems done in class right after class is a great way to refresh your memory and to reinforce those skills. Even if you don't understand what is being written on the board, still write it down. This is going to be really important. So say I sat through class, I am thinking, wow, I have no clue what's going on. So then I go to a tutoring lab and I say, gosh, I need some help here. And they say, what would you like help with? And you're like, I don't know, I didn't understand what went on. Well, can I see what you're working on? Can I see your notes? And you say, I have nothing. There were some numbers on the board. That's not going to be very helpful. So make sure you're writing down even if you don't understand. The next thing is to do your homework. Understanding comes from practice, and this is the biggest section that I'll be talking about. A rule of thumb is that you should be studying 2 to 3 hours outside of class for every hour in class time. Here's another thing to remember. You retain 5% of what you learn from lecture. Now that's a pretty important 5%. If you never hear it, if you're never exposed to it, obviously you're not going to learn it. You retain 75% of what you learn when you practice it. That's doing your homework. Increases it from 5% retention to 75%. And then you retain 90% of what you learn when you can explain it to someone else. That's where you're going to come into how important it is to work in a study group. Sometimes students say, why should I do that homework though? Because you know what? My instructor doesn't even collect it. Okay, that's the difference between high school, when somebody's trying to make sure that you do it because they know it's good for you, and college, where you're assuming the responsibility of doing what you need to really do well in the class and understand the material. You need to own it. You're doing the homework for your own benefit. If you're doing the homework though and you think that the problems seem really easy, you remember the material from high school or another time, make sure that you can do the most difficult problems in the section. So as you work the problems through the section, they tend to get more difficult. It will be assumed that you know how to do the most difficult problems in the section. If you are still working from a textbook versus a software package, some of the classes are using Math Excel or some other software, make sure that you check the answers in the back of the book as you're going through. Don't spend 2 hours on your math homework, never check any answer, just to realize that you have done them all wrong. That's just going to be frustrating, and you're reinforcing skills that aren't right. So check them as you go. You need to learn the math vocabulary. This is a big one that students don't want to do. Okay? If I came in here and said, "Hola, ¿cómo está?" you'd be like, what the heck? She's supposed to be talking about math and now she's talking about Spanish. But that's what it's going to sound like if you don't understand the math terminology. You're going to need to memorize it so that you can understand what your instructor is saying and so that you can understand the directions on your homework, on quizzes, and exams. Do your work neatly and in an order that makes sense. Your work in math is the same as the sentences in a paragraph. If you were going to write an English paper, you would not write your introductory sentence, skip a few things here and there, just slap another sentence down and write a conclusion and think, well, you know what? My instructor read the book or knows what we're talking about. She's going to get it or he's going to get it. You would write everything down because that's the expectations of writing a paper. Well, math is the same thing. It's a language. So your steps when you're completing a math problem are our sentences, just the same as you would write sentences in English. That's how we can tell how well you're understanding the math concepts. Also write them neatly. People are just fine writing math work all over the page and just sticking an answer down. And when you're writing an English paper, you type it all up neatly and it all goes in order. Again, think the same thing for math. If you get a large number of problems wrong, a lot of times people will tell me, I get it. I'm just making really stupid mistakes. Well, if it's a large number in the same topic, chances are there might be more to it than just a stupid mistake. It might be that there's something small that you really don't understand. Show someone, ask the question. If you get that little thing cleared up, it will help you immensely. Do your homework on time. If you get behind, it's going to be much more difficult to catch up. Remember, in math, everything is related. Everything's going to keep building so that first assignment that you miss, the second one builds on it, you're going to be even more confused. So now I have a really high-tech experiment that I'm going to show you visually. So I have these nice Jenga blocks, and when you're working with Jenga blocks, you want to build a tower. So I can start out with a really nice solid base, and you know that to build a tower, you need to keep lining things up to make them solid. So what's going to happen now if I start getting off? So I'm going to put one block off just a little bit. And then I'll try to put one on solid, but then I'm going to put another block. And actually, that's all the farther I need to go. Pretty high tech, huh? What happened? Well, I started this nice solid base, and that was at the beginning of the semester. You came to all your classes, you did all your homework, you turned in all your graded homework. This first block that I put off a little bit, that was the first time that you decided you were going to skip an assignment. You've been doing great up till now, you thought no one's really going to notice, I'll be fine. but it started to make your base knowledge a little shaky. So then you made sure you did what you were supposed to. That next block was on really solid. But what happened after that? It was a gorgeous day out and you decided not to go to class, or you overslept. What happens eventually? The tower tumbles, or your grade falls apart in math class. Your knowledge base is off. And even if you end up passing the class, when you go on to the next class, there's concepts that you're missing. You need to be coming to class, you need to be doing your homework and really stay right on top of it. Again, math builds. Keep your base solid. Whatever you're doing in one class not only matters for that class, but for the classes after that. I just did a study on developmental math students, and looking at Math 091, that's the developmental class that has the most students, I tracked to see how well the students did with different grades at being successful the first time around in Math 105, the next class. So of the students who received an A in Math 091, 86% passed Math 105 the first time successfully. Of the students who got a B, 75% passed the first time. And of the students who got a C, only 54% passed Math 105 successfully the first time. That's 32% less than those students who got an A. So it's saying that the more effort you put in, the more rewards you will reap, not only in that class, but in future classes as well. And that's not just applying to Math 091 to 105. That's talking about any of the series in the math classes. Also remember that you can learn a lot from correcting your own mistakes. So where did the troubles begin? Were you doing just fine and then you had troubles when you added a new section? That's a good way of identifying where you need help. Or if you can go and track through and find your own mistakes, you're much more likely to remember it in the future. So now I need to ask you to do something. And this is really high technology that I'm using, so I can actually see through the camera and see if you're really following along. And so what I want you to do is stand up. No, I really mean it. You need to stand up. All right, why have I asked you to stand up? Well, after about 20 to 25 minutes, the blood actually is just pooling in your butt, and you're not thinking much about what you're doing. So you need to take a break when you're doing your homework. You need to get some exercise, get a snack, do something so that you get the blood moving again and you're more likely to do better. You can sit back down if you want. All right, so let's look and keep going. The next thing is to make sure that you know how to do the problems yourself. This is important if you're working in a study group or if you go to get help from someone. It's great to have someone show you how to do a problem or two, but then you need to make sure that you can do them on your own. It's the same as when you're going someplace in a car. If you're the person in the driver's seat, you're really paying attention to the route you're taking, and you're much more likely to remember it than if you're just the passenger riding along. Use the resources available to you for extra help. Everybody needs help understanding something at one point or another. We have great resources. Use the developmental math lab. Use the credited math lab. The developmental math lab is downstairs, the credited upstairs. People are waiting to help you. Your instructor also has office hours, so that's another great way to get help. We all want to see you succeed, so you need to take that initiative and let us to help you. The developmental math lab, I want to tell you a few things because that's what I'm the most familiar with. About 77% of the students used the developmental math lab last semester. All of the students who got A's in the class used it. So there are lots of people going in and out. You don't need to worry about being the only person that's in there. There are exam reviews available there. There are supplementary worksheets for help. You can also get your group assignments, your graded assignments checked. There are so many resources for however you want to do them. You can have study groups there, so be aware of the resources available to you. Remember though, you are going there for someone to help you to learn, not to do your homework. You're the one who's going to need to take the quizzes and exams. So you've done everything, you've done your homework, you've prepared, and now the test is coming up. That's a really stressful thing for a lot of people, I'd say most people. So what can you do? Start reviewing early. This means actually working out problems. So Say I'm sitting in my car and I'm cruising along and I'm singing along. I'm gonna pop some tags, only got $20 in my pocket, and then now I can't remember what's coming next, so my kids kind of laugh because either I make it up the words or I just hum. If the radio was playing, I would actually be able to sing the words along with it. I know them that well, but not well enough to do it on my own. The same thing is gonna happen if when you are studying for an exam, you just read over your notes. Sure, you understand what's happening, but all those visual cues are there. So you get to it and you're like, that's right, this is what I do next. Then I distribute, then I do whatever. So you get that extra help. Well, what happens when you get to the exam is all of a sudden, like, there's nobody singing on the radio to help you with what words come next. There's no cue there as to what mathematical operation you do next. So make sure you actually work the problems independently. Also make sure that you read the questions carefully. If you're confused about the wording of the problem, ask. Once you have completed the problem, make sure to reread it to see if you have really answered all the parts of the question and to see if there's anything else that you have missed or if you misread it. This is a really important one. Complete the problems that you know how to do first. I had a student in class once, and the first problem on every exam, there was a review problem. It was the same type of problem. The students struggled with that type of problem. They would get that problem wrong, they weren't sure how to do it, and then they would be panicked for the rest of the exam, and they wouldn't do their best. I told that student, skip the problem. Just move on to the problems you know how to do, and they did much better because they gained that confidence. They realized, yes, there were a lot of things they knew how to do. So, complete the problems you know how to do first. Make a little hash mark or something so you know where to come back. This is also going to help keep you paced. You don't want to spend too much time on a problem you're not sure how to do. You want to get full credit for the problems you really know how to do, and then go back to those problems that you weren't sure of. Show all your work. A lot of the problems in math are theory-based. We want to know that you understand the process behind it. So no work means no credit. If you have a question with several parts and you aren't sure how to do the first part, but you think you know how to do the second part, make something up for the first part. You may not get the credit for that, but you have a chance on the second part then to show that what you do know. So, always show as much as you can. Take a chance if you aren't sure of anything else. When you have finished working the test, go back through. Make sure that you catch any of those problems that you have skipped. Make sure you look to see if you've labeled story problems and for little things you might have missed. If you have time, check some of your answer. If you solved an equation, you can always substitute back in and check. When you get your exam or quiz back, do not just throw them in your folder without looking at them, or even worse, throw them in the garbage. Make sure that you look at them again. You will see this material again on the final or in future classes, so you need to make sure that you understand what you did wrong. That's such an important thing that in the developmental math lab we have a super stamp program where you can actually get twice the extra credit for reviewing quizzes or exams with a tutor. Make sure that you save all the material. I told you that. I've had people ask me if they can just throw everything away, and that also includes other graded material. The other place you're going to want to do that for is because if you ever have a discrepancy in grades, you know that you can always show everything that you've done. Don't skip a test. That's true for any class, but make sure that you treat it with the same importance that you do work. Being a student is a job. If you can't make it to an exam, make sure that you notify the instructor via email, or you can even call the main desk at UWFox and they will make sure to get a message to the instructor. So on this last point of don't skipping a test, I'm just going to end with a humorous little story. 4 friends have been doing really well in their math class. They have been getting top grades for their homework and on the midterm. So now when it's time for the final, they decide not to study the weekend before, but to drive to another friend's birthday party in another city, even though the exam is scheduled for Monday morning. As it happens, they stay too late at the party, and on Monday morning they all oversleep. When they finally arrive on campus, the exam is over. They go to the professor's office and offer him an explanation. We went to our friend's party, and when we were driving home, very early Monday morning, we suddenly had a flat tire. We had no spare, and since we were driving on back roads, it took hours until we got help. The professor nods sympathetically and says, "I see it was not your fault. I will allow you to make up for the missed exam tomorrow morning." When they arrive early on Tuesday morning, the students are put by the professor in a large room, and each of them are put in one corner of the room, so they are really spaced far apart, and they have no chance to cheat. The exam booklets are already in place, and confidently the students start writing. The first question, 5 points out of 100, is a simple problem, and all four finish it within 10 minutes. When the first of them has completed the problem, he turns over the page of the exam booklet and reads the next problem. Problem 2, 95 points out of 100. Which tire went flat? So, with that, I really want you to know though, there are so many people here who are really wanting to see you succeed. Take advantage of it and make sure that you own the class. Good luck, and hey, math rocks.